Hello everyone, this is Jared Scriven with Dungeons & Javas, helping you stay up to level up. Here with my friend Clay. Once Dungeons & Javas opens, we will have a library of games that people can rent and check out. So you can come in, if there's a game you want to try out, we may have it in our library, you can play it, see if you like it, and then purchase your own copy if you wish. We know that your time is valuable, so we're starting a series on different games that are available. Here we have Dark Domains, which is a game that my friend Clay bought as a Kickstarter and ordered it. So we thought we'd start with this video as our first one. We'll have him open it up, kind of see what's in the box.
All right, thanks, Jared. So this is a game that I'm really excited about, Dark Domains. It's one that I was following on Kickstarter for quite a while. I just got shipped to me this weekend. I'm really excited to open it up and see what all the pieces are inside of it, and then talk to you a little bit about it. So without further ado, we'll jump right in. And as I said, this is Dark Domains from Laboratory H Games. It's a relatively new game publisher, but there's been a lot of hype about this game. And as Jared mentioned, it's going to be one that we are very proud to present as part of our gaming library at the store, allowing you to go in and rent and check out these games if you'd like. So, very first thing we have here is a lot of tokens. Obviously, big games like this are the types that I really like. We'll talk more about these resources and element types and this track right here, which is what I'm one of the aspects I'm really excited about, evil points in the game. Some more tiles here. This gets into the monster cards that you can help recruit to fight for you, and a 5 counter of evil points. We'll get into that. More monsters, and even more monsters. The board is something that is very cool. It's got different sections here. We've got a whole city. This is a worker placement game to where you have 17 different spots on the entire board to be able to place your minions. There's actually 36 places among those 17 to allow you to place your minions and gain resources and do different things in the game. But very cool artwork, and we'll get into that gameplay a little bit more here in a few minutes. In addition to the main game board where all of the gameplay takes place, each player also has their own domain, hence the name of the game, Dark Domains. Each faction, the dwarves, the elves, the cloaked, the Harrows folk, and the Northmen each have their own 4 sections of their domains, and this is where you'll build your buildings that you will later turn to paraphrase Star Wars to the dark side. And now we get into the meat and potatoes of the game. These are the mercenaries that you can hire for your own nefarious purposes. Some spell cards that make the game really unique and robust. Your buildings, there's actually 2 packs of these because there are so many buildings, so many options for you, and each of the buildings has both a light and a dark side. Additional spells here, spells, and more spells. And this is another really cool aspect of the game. These are fortune cards. These will be a random event at the beginning of every turn that are going to change the aspects of certain elements of the gameplay. And this very last card here is death. If that fortune card ever comes up, the game immediately ends after that turn. So this is the card that signifies the end of the game. And of course, as I mentioned, this is a worker placement game. So here are all of the meeples for people to have as their minions. And Laboratory H did a great job of including with the game their own set of Ziploc bags so you can store all these pieces after we punch them out. So, final aspect is the dice. This is how the adventurers come attack you and how you defend your own cities with these dice. So Jared and I are going to take a minute to get all this set up for you, and then we'll jump into the gameplay. All right, we now have the board all set up. The game is ready to be played, and We may do a playtest video at some point later, but right now we just want to talk about the different aspects and elements of the game. The first thing that's really cool about this game is it is a evil board game. Each of the players is a master of their domain, but you have been influenced by the necromancer to be an agent of evil. So how the game is actually won is accumulating these evil points. Now, these evil points can be garnered a variety of ways, but ultimately the person who ends the game with the most evil points has proven himself the most loyal subject to the necromancer and therefore wins the game. The game is played with 8 phases in each round, and the game continues until the death fortune card is revealed. So let's talk a little bit about each one of these sections of the board and what they do. Over here on the right of the board is a marker that indicates each of the phases: fortune, preparation, minion, resolution, foreman, adventure, production, and the end of turn. Here on the edge of the board, as I mentioned, is places for each one of the cards. Here is where the fortune cards go, buildings go along the bottom, henchmen face up are over here, face down henchmen are over here. Areas for the spells: adventuring party number 1, adventuring party number 2, and then all of the worker placement spaces on the board and what they do. And let's not forget about our friends, the monsters. So let's talk about the 8 phases that are in each game round. The first one is the fortune phase. During the fortune phase, you reveal 2 cards off of the fortune deck. As I mentioned earlier, when the death card comes up, that signifies that the game is about to end. When you reveal 2 fortune cards, you look to see if the symbols are paired with one another as indicated on the cards. If so, you read the bottom section of that particular card. In this particular case, neither of these 2 fortune cards are paired, so you read the top section. Once the fortune phase is ended, you go to the preparation phase. That is a very straightforward phase. Pretty much the only thing that happens during the preparation phase is there are certain spells that can be cast during the preparation phase. Next up, we have the minion phase. That's where the players are going to place their workers anywhere on the 17 different areas of the board. And as I mentioned earlier, there are 36 total places that you can place the workers on the board, signified by these empty circles. During the next step, the resolution phase, they will reap whatever is indicated in that section. So let's talk about each one of these sections for a second. The series allows you to peek at the top 3 fortune cards and put them back in any order. That gives you an advantage of knowing what's coming up so that you can prepare for that eventuality. The business district, straightforward, it garners you 2 coins. The Temple of the Black Colt gives you 2 evil points. As I mentioned earlier, that is what allows you to win the game. Next up, we have the Assassin's Guild. This is a very expensive place to influence. As you can see, you either have to pay 12 coins or 6 evil points, but you can kill a certain enemy from the board, either one of your opponent's meeples, one of their henchmen, or one of the adventurers up here. Then we move on to the Street Thug. He does the same thing as the Assassin's Guild. He's considerably cheaper, but you have to roll a die to achieve the results. It's a 6-sided die. On a 1 or 2, the thug is successful. Moving down to the Architects Guild, you simply take one of the buildings from this section. You do not yet get to build that building in your domain. That comes in a later stage. Next up is the Wayward Dragon Inn. This allows you to hire henchmen, and the henchmen garner you additional resources and benefits throughout the game. On to the Builders Guild. You can pay money to get any of the building resources you need to construct your buildings. Moving on down the path, we come to the Tower of the Elements. Similar to the Builders Guild giving you resources to build buildings, the Towers of the Elements give you the spell components that you need to be able to cast your spells. Over here is the Library of the Shaded Council. That allows you to draw 3 spell cards if you influence this space. Next up along the track is the Green Unicorn Tavern. That allows you to take one of these adventuring parties up here, one of these cards, and replace them with another card. And we'll get into what the adventurers do at a later phase. Continuing along the road is the Yellow Swan Tavern. Same thing. The Yellow Swan Tavern is this group of adventurers. The Green Unicorn Tavern is this group of adventurers. Moving on, the next stop is the docks, and that's where you can take the foreign mercenary that is there and have him help defend your board that turn. Following the docks over to the far lands, that's where you have the opportunity of hiring a henchman, although you do not get to see what the henchman is. Next up is the Nichtmarg, and that is where the monsters, you can recruit them to help fend off the adventurers in your domain. Each one of these monsters has different abilities. Most of the time, what you're focused on is the value in the upper right. That is the defense that they will add to the particular building in your domain that they are defending. They have a cost in the lower right. In the lower left is what they garner you during the production phase. And on some monsters, such as the dragon, have special abilities. They will allow you to pay certain elements to roll an additional die. Earth elementals, you have to spend earth element, fire elementals, fire, and so on, but the dragon allows you to spend any of the elements. After the Nichtmarg is the Harrow's Town Council. The person who influences this gets 2 coins and gets to be the first player. Lastly is the Royal Court on the track, and the person who influences the Royal Court gets 2 money and additionally gets an additional worker for the next phase. Once all of the players have placed their minions, you move on to phase 4, which is the resolution phase. Starting with the seer and following the road around, each person collects the resources or cards that are indicated by the game board. After the resolution phase is the Foreman Phase. That is where players get to build the buildings that they collected during the resolution phase and place them into their domain. The cost for each of the buildings is listed down below. Of course, the buildings that do better things will typically cost more. After players have constructed their buildings, they move on to the adventurer phase. The really cool thing about the adventure phase of this game is once you have built a building in your domain, the adventurers will either come pilgrimage to your site or they will come attack you. Each of the adventuring groups has a leader on the left side of the board, and that leader has 2 different symbols that indicates which buildings they will visit first. This is a symbol for magic, indicating that that leader will attack any building who has flipped over to the dark side on someone's board. Otherwise, they will take a pilgrimage to that player's domain, and that player will get some resources for that. After the adventure phase comes the production phase. The production phase is where different monsters that you have in your domains, different buildings in your domains, spells that you may cast, or henchmen will give you certain resources. Lastly is the end of turn phase. That is where you reset any of the cards that have been taken from the buildings or the adventurers, and each one of the adventuring party members, the leaders go away, the other cards slide down, and you populate the adventurers deck with 2 new adventurers. After the end of turn phase, you move on to the next round, where you reveal new fortune cards, and you once again continue play through the 8 phases until the game ends. That's pretty much it. There is the element of battling the adventurers that come attack you. Each one of the adventurers has a die listed. So in this particular case, if you get attacked by the adventurers from the Yellow Swan Tavern, they have 2d10, 3d10s, and a d8. So in that particular case, you would roll that. So that's 13 and 5 is 18. You compare that number against the defense of your building that they come attack. Of course, they will only attack you if you're on the dark side. And any monster that's on that is protecting it, you compare their totals against your defense. And if they exceed your defense, they destroy the building and kill that monster. Otherwise, if you repel the adventurers, you get 3 evil points. Of course, there are other elements to the game, such as the spell cards that can affect the game, the Master of the Domain card that you start out the game with that will affect certain elements, and of course, the random events that are in the fortune deck. So that's the overview of Dark Domains. I really look forward to playing this game in the future. We'll try and do a playtest video as well. And this will be one of the games available in the Dungeons & Javas library. If you want to see other games in our gaming library, let us know in the comments below.
Join us on Facebook and Instagram, and just let us know what games you'd like us to have in stock or that we'd have available for play. Once again, this is Jared and Clay with Dungeons & Javas, helping you stay up to level up.